So you're going to get into the meat and the potatoes of the pod and talk about the Netflix thriller Don't Move. So the movie came out October 25th, 2024, and the film is essentially about this woman. She's grieving. Her name is Iris, and she goes to a secluded forest to basically mourn the loss of her son. And while she's there, she runs into this man. His name is Richard. Or is it? We don't know. And, they meet, they talk, he seems nice, but we soon find out that he is a serial killer who injects her with a paralytic agent, as she has 20 minutes to escape before her body completely shuts down, as she has no defenses left. And this film is described as a high-stakes survival scenario that is directed by Adam Schindler, Brian Netto, produced by Sam Raimi and Zainab Azizi. And I do want to say, one thing that did draw me to the film is Kelsey Asbille, or Asbille. I'm not sure how to say her last name. People have pronounced it different ways, but some people recognize her from like Fargo, Yellowstone. I recognize her from the hit Disney XD show, Fargo.
You get it. You get it. You get it.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was my girl. That episode?
Yeah. Yeah.
Shout out to Styles too, but we'll come back to that.
So I was intrigued because I saw the trailer come up at my YouTube recommended, and I was like, oh, a new Netflix movie. Because I watch a lot of trailers because I need to know what's coming out. Because unless you unless you are someone who does movie reviews on the regular, or I guess if you check your AMC app, you don't really know what's coming out every so often. Or if you're on Netflix all the time,
there's no commercials anymore. Yeah. You don't have commercials anymore, so there's no way to just accidentally stumble on a movie.
Yes. So I came across the trailer and I watched it and I was like, oh, it's her girl.
Remind me when that one drops.
Yeah. I got on my Netflix app and I was like, you better send me this notification.
Today.
I'm watching it. Yeah. The second it drops on your platform, let me know. Okay? Yes, please. Yes. I actually do the remind me things for Netflix, like what's new on Netflix, because I need to know what things are coming out.
I do too, especially if something looks really good. I was so happy that I had the remind me on for Damsel, because we were having this amazing fantasy movie night, and then at midnight it was Damsel has just been added to Netflix, and it was this is the best movie I've ever seen. I'm watching this every night. What's going on? Yeah. Yes. No, totally agree. This film I was literally screaming, audibly screaming out of my mouth, because there were so many moments that were so, I can only describe it as almost a point of view, the way that the director was kind of pulling us into these scenes, these super intimate, super thoughtful scenes. But it's you're running with her through the woods, and she has her timer on, as these different things start happening to her body. And it's just even as we start getting deeper into Richard's character, if that's his name, does his wife know? Does she have any kind of understanding? Is she, under some sort of compulsion too? I don't know. The whole thing was so crazy. And then at the very, very end of it, what he says to her is so vile and so striking that it's this is horror. This is psychological horror. I'm never going to be the same after this. Yeah. What?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So just starting off, I feel when I watched the trailer, the trailer does such a good job, because all we know is that she is going to be paralyzed at some point in the movie. But the trailer, what the I don't like about trailers nowadays is that they give a little too much away. But the good thing about this trailer was that it didn't let us know who the bad guy was. So, and my thought was that Finn Wittrock's character was another victim in the movie, or he's just some kind of guy. And I think the trailer led you to believe that the older man she runs into, he's actually the guy who snatches her up. But when, when she meets Richard at the top of the cliff, and he's like kind of like, trying to talk to her and like, try and coax her off of the ledge, and then when they get to the car and he has his umbrella, I'm like, why is he with his umbrella out? It's not gonna rain. And it turns out it's a stun device. I'm like, oh, okay, here we go.
Respectfully, I was always suspicious of him because I am a big American Horror Story fan. So I was like, oh, he killing somebody in here. Like, he has to. I've never seen him play somebody sane. Not one time.
There's not been one. The thing is that I actually haven't seen Finn Wittrock. I don't think I've seen him in anything. I know he's in American Horror Story. I know he's in the film Ratchet, but I don't think I've seen him act before. So I've just seen him, because like, if there is like a white actor who's like in something and it's a bit popular, somehow they always end up on like Twitter or like in these fan casts. So his face is familiar to me.
Right.
So, when I saw
him it's like movie, one of those things.
Yeah. And I saw him in this movie and he's like playing, this like diabolical serial killer. I was like, oh, he's acting. He's giving it to us. I was like,
I encourage you not to just watch Hotel, but to watch Freak Show. Because he is stirring, playing aside a legend like Patti LaBelle. Listen,
Patti LaBelle is an American Horror Story?
Absolutely.
What's she doing
tell you something? Can I say something? Can I say something really problematic? Like, this is going to go left.
Okay.
This might be the clip. Ryan Murphy and Brad Fulchuk. There's not one thing somebody could be like, well, and I would be like, I would listen empathetically and I would still turn on whatever it is. Because there's nothing that kind of, the way that he can wrangle your absolute faves and put them in these situations that you're just like, not only do I'm not seeing you as my iconic fave, I'm seeing you as this person. It's also like, girl, you're writing. There's 15 storylines and I'm in all of them. Like, what are we, what's happening? You know what I mean? So for me, I love it. I absolutely love it. There's only like one or two American Horror Stories that I missed. And I'm not going to lie. It's a good time. Follow that up. Every time I see those crystal blue eyes and that sharp chin of Finn's, I know that somebody's in peril. Because I'm in peril. Because I know what he's capable of. Yeah. And that's like his lane. Like, I don't want him to get typecasted into that. Because I think he does have range just from what we've seen of him. But like, I mean, he can play a serial killer.
Yeah.
Like, in a way that's like Penn Badgley. Like, what are you going to do after this? Like, what are you going to do after you is done? Like,
yeah.
It's been 6 seasons, 5 coming up on 6. Like,
what's next for you?
What's next? But can we just talk about like how the movie started, and then like, I don't know, like I almost felt like what was so interesting was like where she was mentally when it began. Of like just so wrapped in grief, so wrapped in like guilt, so wrapped in like shame. Like there were all of these things, right?
Yeah.
And like she's at this symbolic place of where that grief began, right? But then what is it about this man that leads you off the cliff? You know what I mean? Not that I would think that's how that necessarily progressed, but like, what is it that he says? He's very like nonchalant. Like the things that he says are interesting and moving, but he's not very committal on which way you know what I mean? He doesn't say anything that's necessarily like just one more day. Like he's just kind of like, well, whatever you choose, I'm gonna go this way. Like, what made you safe in that moment is kind of the only kind of criticism or thought that I had about that character. Was it just that it felt like a sign of like, okay, I can move into this new place and like there's support here, even if it's from a stranger, but like to me, and maybe it's my judgment of him already knowing like what it's going to be, but I was like, I wouldn't have necessarily felt safe even chit-chatting with him that long. Like,
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know. I thought that part was interesting.
I think the reason why he was able to kind of like talk her off the ledge is because for most people, if you see someone standing on the edge of a mountain, you're immediately just like, oh, well, let me back myself up because like that they're dealing with something. But because he's not scared and he doesn't back down from it, he kind of like coaxes her through it. And as a serial killer, I would imagine he's done this before. He has to know how to make people feel a sense of calm and a state of panic. He has to know, like, he has to.
You're right.
He needs to know how to talk to people where he could kind of get in their heads and make them see him as the viable option. Like, even though he's just a strange man in the middle of the forest, you don't know who he is or how he got there or what's he doing there. He needs to be able to disarm you so you don't see him as a threat. It's the same, like, it's great that you brought up Penn Badgley and Joe Goldberg because when you think about the scene where the police like are confronting him at the end of season 1, and you know the little boy who lives in this building is there, and the police are trying to figure out, do we trust this random guy or do we trust the dad of this kid? And they trust the random guy over the dad because Joe knows how to seem disarming and non-threatening to people. He knows how to do that because he's just a guy. He's just a dude. He seems like a nice guy. And he knows how to talk to people. He knows how to convince people. That is his skill and manipulation. So that's why she follows him like down the mountain and back to her car because she just sees him as like a guy who speaks softly, seems very understanding, empathetic, has kind eyes, and so she's able to lower her guard and like at least trust him enough to like walk back to her car and feel like she's going to be okay. Yeah.
I think that's really, really interesting. And I love that take because, you know, I think that's something that we hear. I love documentaries. And I had a little serial killer documentary phase. I'm in my cult documentary right now. And like, you know, every documentary you see about like Ted Bundy says like, how charismatic he was, like how quickly he could be like, and you're just like, oh wow, like, yeah, you know. And I almost think it's that kind of like lowering of that veil of like objectiveness, but like sometimes objectivity is apathy. Like sometimes where you're too objective and you're too calm, you know what I mean? Like there is a level of apathy that exists there, and maybe I'm just susceptible to that because I love, like, that's, I mean, not love, but I'm so interested by like serial killers' arcs, especially when it's from their perspectives. It's always like, what? You know what I mean? And I think that's why like Sweet Pea is kind of this thought of like, nobody is thinking that 110-pound girl, you know what I mean, is
a serial killer.
Yeah. But it's like, no, and it's not like her victims are wafy either. They're like big people, you know what I mean? But I don't know, with him, I just felt like his presence there, how quiet he was when he walked up.
Oh yeah.
Everything about that would have made me go, I'm just gonna sit here for a little bit longer. You know what I mean? Like, even if I'm not gonna do what I originally came to do, I'm just gonna sit here a little bit longer, you know? I don't know. But yeah. Tell me what you think about him.
I do see what you're saying, like, because you consume a lot of serial killer content and, like, true crime, that if you're in that situation, you would automatically be on guard because you're not, because of the information you have and because of what you watched, you're just already on guard to the point where, like, immediately trusting someone just because they're nice is just, like, not your vibe, not your MO. Because, like, no. And for me, when I first saw him on screen, I already like assumed that he was just like some guy. I assumed he was just like hang out. He said he had a cabin around, so I was like, oh, he's just like he's just
living here.
Yeah, and I was trying to think when I was watching it because I was watching it in my living room, and I was just like kind of just like watching it casually, and I was like, did I see him before? Like, I'm trying to convince myself now. Like, maybe he was there in the screen, or maybe he was there in the shot and I didn't see him. But like, then when I rewatched it today, I was like, no, he wasn't in the shot at all. Like, the film does a good job of very clearly showing you how she is walking up to the mountain, and it's very clear she is by herself. It is
Yes.
her in nature, and the fact that the film takes the time to like show this in the shots means that like it's obvious that like the directors were kind of hoping that like there are some people watching this movie on their phone, so they're just kind of distracted, so they couldn't tell. So when the guy does come in the shot, they're like, oh, maybe he was there and I just missed it or something. But if you're actually watching it and you see it and then you see the guy come to view, it's like, wait, where did he come from?
Where'd you come from?
Exactly.
That's the thought that I had, and I just felt like there was no, you know, like if you're walking on a trail, there are signs that another person have been there.
You
like
will hear footsteps.
You will, and like as close as he was, like, were you hiding in a bush? Like, there was no way that she just did not hear him walking. Yes, she was very distracted, but it's just like there were a couple of things that just made me feel like, why is he trying to take control of this situation?